Yes, it has been a little while since a good old edition of Wrestling with Rosenberg, and I am so fortunate to have one of the best wrestlers in the world, and I would say at this very moment, at the hottest point of his career, Daniel Bryan is here. How are you, sir?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm good, man. I was in the house last night, and I thought, what a special thing that I get to interview this guy tomorrow when I'm watching someone really getting to the pinnacle, or towards the pinnacle of their career. How does it feel as a kid who's, been such a pure wrestler for so long, someone that, so many people could have doubted that they would have been able to make it to this level? How does it feel to have just main evented another pay-per-view with, of all people, CM Punk? How must that feel?
Yeah, I mean, it's great. It's one of those things that you never really expect to happen. Like, this has always been my dream as a kid, is to be at this level and to do this kind of stuff. And I actually have aspirations of getting even higher, to getting to the point where Cena is, where regardless of whether he's in a title match or not, he's always the last match on the show. But just 5 years ago, if you would have asked somebody if I could have been a superstar in WWE, they would have said, no, he's too pale, he's not charismatic enough, he's not this, he's not that, he's not whatever. He's a good wrestler, but that's not enough to make it in something like the WWE. So it's real nice.
Yeah, you started as a backyard guy, right?
No. Do you know what? It's funny.
Why is that?
I've heard that before.
It's on your Wikipedia page.
I want to say it's on my Wikipedia page, but the only reason that exists is because, when you're in high school, so I graduated in 99, where people were just kind of learning to build websites and stuff like that. So
which was the backyard era, was like the beginning of websites. It all coincided.
Well, so for my buddy was taking a class where they were building a website. So we took pictures as these wrestlers, and I was like the Uno Dos Tres Chico, and all this, all these really stupid things. And so anyways, we put up the website or whatever for his class, and then all of a sudden it's on Wikipedia and all that kind of stuff.
Dude, because I looked at it today. He's like, I know enough about, to interview Daniel Bryan. And I was like, but let me just see. Maybe there's a factoid.
Right.
So I look and I'm like, that's really interesting. Right. I never fancied him to be a backyard kind of guy.
No.
So right away, you just went the wrestling school.
Yep, I went and trained with Shawn Michaels. It's very important, we say at WWE, to get professionally trained if you're going to do this. You don't want to try this at home. It's very dangerous. So yeah, I went and trained with the best. Shawn Michaels is awesome. I trained with him for a full year down there. Then I went and trained with William Regal in Memphis, and have trained all over the world with some of the best wrestlers. So
did you just kind of sack up and be like, I'm going down and going to train with Shawn Michaels?
Yeah, well, actually, I was supposed to train with Dean Malenko, and
his school closed?
Yeah, $500 is a lot of money for a kid who's 17, 18 years old, and I gave him my $500 deposit, and then all of a sudden, 3 weeks before I'm supposed to go down there, the school closes. And then I see this advertisement on Monday Night Raw for the commercial that Shawn Michaels is opening up a wrestling school. I thought, well, if he's actually there, this should be good. If it's not, it's a waste of a lot of money.
So did you tell him your sob story? Did you get there and you're like, dude, I just spent $500 trying to go to Malenko's school. So you saved up again, you found some money?
Yeah. Well, I had been working. That $500 deposit, I gave it to them when I was a sophomore in high school. And so I had just started working at McDonald's. I was 15 and wasn't even allowed to serve burgers. I was just mopping floors.
Daniel
and
Bryan,
stuff.
You, of all people, were shoveling burgers at McDonald's.
Oh, yeah.
Was this pre-vegan?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've only been vegan for 2.5 years.
Oh, you're relatively a new jack.
Relatively a new vegan. Yeah. So yeah. But who I did tell this story to is Dean Malenko, that they took my $500 and I never got it back, and he does not care at all. He was like,
he hasn't come up to you at a show and paid you back?
No, not at all.
So what was it like just the first time you get to the school? I don't know if he appeared right away or whenever you did get to see and talk to Shawn Michaels. What was that like?
Well, you didn't really talk to him at first because you're still a little awestruck, and especially when we're all there early. I think the first class started at 9 a.m. or something like that, and so we're there at 8 o'clock and just really nervous about I don't know anything of what this is going to entail. It's, and then Sean just strolls in casually, 5 minutes before 9, and just like is really laid back, and you can see he's kind of eyeing us up as far as like, what do I have here? And he's clearly not looking at me as like, this guy's our superstar potential or anything, but yeah. So it was. But the first, when you finally got to know Sean and relate to him a little bit, he was really fun, and it was interesting because even looking back on it now, he would let us make cracks at him a little bit.
Really?
Yeah, like
because isn't this still? This is like 2000, right?
This was 1999. Yeah.
So this was still, I think, the era that Sean would describe as him. This is pre him finding the Lord, and he was kind of still a D-bag at this point, wasn't he?
He wasn't necessarily, but he had his problems. He definitely had his problems, and his back, he had back surgery or something, maybe a year or two before, and he was in a lot of pain, and so
depending on the day, you could get a different kind of Sean.
Yeah, definitely.
Was he your hero? Who was your number one guy growing up?
My number one guy growing up was Dean Malenko.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, so you were really heartbroken when this.
Oh, you have no idea. Dean Malenko was my favorite. Like the Texas Cloverleaf. I was just like, oh, this guy is so cool, And then you meet him, and he has the driest sense of humor ever. It's just great. So yeah, he was my man.
All of these things you add up, and it speaks to why people would be surprised that here we are. The kid who dreams of being Dean Malenko
right?
isn't the guy that in 2012 you picture being a top guy at WWE.
No, it's not. It's not, and it's really strange because the wrestling that I really liked as growing up was I watched a lot of Japanese wrestling. My ultimate goal when I started wrestling was I never thought I would make it in WWE legitimately. So I really wanted to spend a lot of time in Japan and be a big star in Japan. And then I thought that would be easy too, because then when you come home to the States, nobody knows who you are. So you can just live like a normal everyday life, but then Japan has kind of gone down the tube a little bit as far as being able to earn a living over there, and then I made the decision to come to WWE and give it a shot.
So you were the Malenko, Benoit, Jericho. These were kind of the names that you were looking at. Eddie Guerrero.
Yeah. Those are the guys who like in '95 when all those guys came to WCW, and then Ray came to WCW and that sort of thing. Like all of a sudden, this cruiserweight division, that was the most exciting wrestling I'd ever seen. I mean, like I loved Shawn Michaels and I loved Bret Hart and I loved those guys. But then all of a sudden, you see these cruiserweight guys. They're doing stuff that you'd never seen before, like just completely unreal stuff. And that's what really got somebody like me hooked. I didn't like The Rock, like I
didn't identify with the character.
Didn't identify with The Rock at all. And it's funny because and I can see why now is because he's so cool. Like you meet him and he's just the coolest guy.
And he's always like that.
Yeah, and he's always like, you're like, wow, I wish I was like The Rock, but I'm not like The Rock, which is why I don't identify him, which is why I like Dean Malenko, is because I am.
He's a badass and I can be somewhat like him.
I can be like Dean Malenko. I can't be like The Rock.
So what's it like when you're standing in the, in Gorilla at WrestleMania about to, like you said, I've never heard that before. You didn't actually think, even though you're as good as you are, and many people had thought, even through Ring of Honor, that you were as good as you were, you didn't necessarily think that it would ever happen.
Right.
So what does it feel like when you're sitting there about to walk out at WrestleMania with a title?
Yeah, it's very surreal. And anytime, and there have been several times where I've walked out in front of really big crowds. I did a couple Tokyo Dome shows in Japan in front of 50,000+ people. I did the pre-show match at WrestleMania last year and then did this year's. It always feels surreal. The idea that, because I don't feel like, and this is a very much a negative when you get to the level of the WWE, when you're dealing with somebody like Vince McMahon. I do not see myself as a superstar. And so the idea that these people are excited to see me or something like that, and there's a lot of them, and you walk out and there's a lot of people out there, it doesn't feel real at all.
What do you mean you don't see yourself as a superstar? And if Vince would to hear that,
Oh my
wouldn't
gosh,
that make him want to
me right now?
Yeah, I mean,
you might fire me right now.
God damn it, you're a superstar.
Do you know what though? I am the antithesis of everything that Vince thinks a superstar is. I don't eat meat.
Oh.
I'm wearing a wooden watch. I've got shoes on.
Show your shoes. You got to see this guy's shoes. If Vince McMahon was to see these, he'd be disgusted.
I'm wearing, and I think everybody should be wearing Tom's shoes, because you buy a pair of Tom's shoes and he gives a free pair of shoes to somebody in need, to a child who doesn't have shoes. It's a great story. It's
wonderful.
It's wonderful. But that's not Vince McMahon. That is not what he's into, right?
No. What about the meat? The meat thing must kill you.
Okay, yeah. So Chris Jericho told me a funny story about my first day on NXT. I actually wrestled Jericho, and Chris came to the back. He said, "This guy's good. We can use this guy." And Vince just looks at him in disgust and says, "Who's gonna buy somebody who doesn't even eat meat?" He's absolutely disgusted by the whole thing.
For people who get, are nerds and follow the stories, Vince, from what I've heard, Vince has pretty much a steak wrap for just about every meal with a full bottle of ketchup. That's pretty much the man loves meat. He loves a hearty drink.
Yep.
That's who Vince McMahon is.
Yep.
So the fact that CM Punk, straight edge CM Punk, and vegan Daniel Bryan, it's just this amazing moment.
Right. And neither of us and he was big into that bodybuilder subculture and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
He likes he likes guys who are big and strong, and you look at me and Punk, and neither of us have ever had a drink in our lives, and I'm in good shape. In fact, I'm in great shape. I can wrestle for an hour and not be tired. I can go and do kickboxing, grappling, and just keep going. But I am not one of those guys like the Ryback who can power
not
clean
Ryback.
375 pounds.
Feeds you more, and by that I mean whole grain rice and delicious vegetables.
Right? Yeah.
So last night, though, let me just say it, No Way Out, you guys, even by your new standards, were super over. I mean, well, let me tell you this, just I was at WrestleMania, and your response was awesome at WrestleMania, especially considering you guys started the show. The yeses right from the beginning, I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, Yes came about. I didn't even notice Yes until a house show about 3 weeks before WrestleMania.
Yeah. And it was actually probably one of my favorite moments of my career, because there's all these people. It was ridiculous. It was funny how
much love you were getting.
Yeah.
If I had my druthers, and I know what the wrestling world cares about is me getting what I want in wrestling, I wanted you to chase Mark Henry as a babyface. You as the babyface to chase Mark Henry, who was just in the middle of such an incredible run last year. Yeah. I wanted you to chase him, win the championship in the most improbable of circumstances. Daniel Bryan somehow beats Mark Henry, who at that point was just putting people in the Hall of Pain.
Monster. Yeah.
You get the belt off him at WrestleMania, and then a few months later, would end up getting what we got now.
Uh-huh.
Is that how you would have seen it, or was that how you thought it was going to go, or did it play out how you, or you were just...
To be honest, until Mark Henry got hurt, I was legitimately thinking I would be the first Money in the Bank winner to lose when he cashed in the briefcase. That was and it just goes back to it wasn't thinking that I can do it. I know I've got the skill set to be able to be popular with the WWE universe and whatnot, but I had a firm belief that Vince did not want somebody like me with his titles, and that was it. It was
And Mark told me a story off the record. He told me a story about when they told you. He just told me he didn't really know what was going on, and you guys were sitting there before a show one night, before whatever that pay-per-view that was, and they came in and grabbed you and were like, this is what's happening, and it was just kind of like, holy shit, this is happening.
Yeah, I was legitimately it was in Baltimore, Maryland. It was at Tables, Ladders, and Chairs in December, and I was literally just flown in to do a signing. The pay-per-view before was Survivor Series, and Big Show and Mark Henry did this awesome thing.
I was
with
there, the
superplex.
superplex.
Yeah,
amazing.
the superplex and the ring collapsed, and there were some people chanting Daniel Bryan. I wasn't even there. They didn't even fly me into the show. And so, so there I am. I just had a signing at a Kmart in Baltimore or something like that. I thought, I'm just here to do the signing. I'm literally sitting by the merch guys trying to find Wi-Fi in the thing so I can answer a few emails and whatnot. And yeah, Arn Anderson just pulls me aside and he's like, "Hey, I need to talk to you."
And there you are.
And there I am.
Now, what do you do at this point? I mean, obviously, what you say that now your expectation. I guess expectations change because you were saying you never thought you'd have the title. Now you'd never be the guy.
Right.
Now you're saying you want to be the guy to the degree that title doesn't matter. No matter what, you're over.
Well, I've always wanted to be that guy. I just, from what I was seeing, and you have to get to a certain point to be able to do that. For example, Tyson Kidd is one of my favorite wrestlers to watch.
He's one of the best.
As far as getting opportunities, you never get to hear him talk. If I were to ask you, what is Tyson Kidd's personality? What is his character? You would have no idea. And when you know Tyson Kidd, he's a funny dude. He's a mean-spirited guy.
Only because I heard him on Colt's podcast do I have an idea of what he's like.
Yeah, and so he's one of those guys who, he's an amazing wrestler and all that kind of stuff. And that doesn't guarantee that you're gonna be successful or anything, but he's a guy who hasn't been given an opportunity. And when you're not given a lot of opportunities, you tend to think like, man, as good as I know I can be, I don't know if this is a possibility. Well, now I'm at the level where even if they just took me off TV for the next 3 months, I feel like the fan base is strong enough that I could come back and there would still be people who would be wanting me to get to that level. And if there's people wanting me to get to that level, I feel I have the skill set to get there. So.
Well, absolutely. And we got to let you go here in a minute. First of all, there's a show tonight at Nassau Coliseum.
Yes.
It'll be awesome. That to me is one of my just favorite, for the Northeast, kind of classic wrestling venues. It's been around for a long time, has a lot of history.
Oh yeah.
And it's a smart crowd too. It's a smart wrestling crowd who I'm sure will be very into Daniel Bryan. So if you're in the area, make sure you go head out to Nassau Coliseum tonight. And not something you're into, one of the few places that still has a smoke deck bar outside that you can hang out at when you go to shows in Long Island.
Yeah, probably huge steak sandwiches too, right?
Exactly.
Everything that I don't.
Oh, by the way, you should have seen the Bizarro steak and cheese stand that they had last night in Jersey, because the Izod is now the old decrepit stepchild of the Jersey stadiums.
Really?
Yeah, dude, you got to see the picture I have. I'm going to post this in the video. You have to see this picture of the food that they were selling yesterday at the stadium. They literally had bricks set up, and I guess they had propane under the bricks or something.
Okay.
And it looked like, this would disgust you at this point in your life. Although, do you actually miss eating meat, or are you someone who's disgusted by it?
Oh yeah, no, I miss it, and the only reason I don't eat meat is for health reasons. Oh my god!
Does that look like food that you sell at a stadium?
No, I guess I don't understand it.
It was awesome. It was. Look at this. Look how homemade this looked.
Right.
This is that's absolutely crazy to me. That's what the food they were selling. So it's funny because of course, thinking of you as the heel Daniel Bryan that you are, I would think that you're nauseated by steak and cheese and cheeseburgers, but it's a health thing for you.
Yeah. When I was first signed by WWE, they do this extensive medical testing and stuff like that. I had a lot of problems, elevated cholesterol, high liver enzymes, all this different stuff. And then on top of that, in 2009, right before I was signed, I had 3 different staph infections that year. I do a lot of grappling and stuff like that, but I got a staph infection shortly after I'd gotten signed, but I was sitting at home. They weren't using me yet, and this was on a Thursday. I got it, and I was like, if they call me Saturday and say you're needed for Raw, I'm like, well, I can come, but I've got staph. You don't want me to touch anybody. I'm sure it would be like, okay, well that's great. Here's your 90 days, and you can.
Yeah, you're missing the opportunity.
And so I went and talked to my doctor, and he said, well, you can stop wrestling. that'll clear up a lot of your health problems, or as far as like the staph problems go. But he said you should really try going vegan. The idea being that meats, cheeses, milks, all that stuff is harder for your body to digest, so you're not fighting off bacteria. Like you're using that energy to digest food, where if you eliminate that, you're using that energy to fight off bacteria. And then on top of that, it has the benefit of, like, I just have naturally high cholesterol, I guess, and then naturally high liver enzymes and stuff like that, and that lowered all that.
So you're in good shape now.
Yeah, I'm in good shape now, and so like, so yeah, but I do miss it, and more so than anything else, I miss the convenience of it. After a show at 11 p.m.
What are you gonna eat? It's a cheeseburger and French fries.
Yeah. So after tonight's show at Nassau, we're driving to Baltimore. That's 200 plus miles. What am I going to eat between Nassau and Baltimore? Do you know what I'm going to eat? I'm going to eat seeds and protein shakes made out of hemp and brown rice protein.
And your cohorts on the road are stopping to get a
burger. Yeah.
Oh, that is kind of brutal.
Especially with the Ryback. I'm riding with the Ryback.
Oh, feed him more.
Feed him more. Do you know what? The Ryback had a mental breakdown at Panera Bread. We had to, because Panera Bread is like my safe haven, right? I can go to Panera Bread. I can get a Mediterranean veggie sandwich with no cheese.
Beautiful.
I can get a black bean soup. You know, it's it is my heaven, right? The Ryback goes in there and like he literally just stood up there for like 8 minutes and he legitimately at one point gave up and like stormed over to me and Cody Rhodes and said, "There's nothing I can eat here." And this is a legitimate quote. He said, "I mean, guys like you can eat here," like implying us guys who are less than 220 pounds, we can eat at Panera Bread, but there's nothing for him. And we're like, calm down, you know. They have steak stuff there, and they have chicken stuff. And he goes up there and he says, "Do you have chicken breast?" And they have chicken breast, but it's just called oven roasted chicken. The girl didn't know. She's probably 16 years old, and she's like, "No." And he's like, "Do you guys have salads? Do you guys have salads?" And there's a huge thing right there that says premium salads. And the picture is a premium salad with lots of steak on it. And granted, the meat servings on those salads and stuff,
they're sparse.
Yeah, they're sparse. But all you have to do is say, "Hey, I'll pay you a couple extra bucks. Give me some extra meat." But he legitimately...
So there's legit heat between Ryback and Panera.
He's the Ryback.
The Ryback and Panera have legit heat right now.
Yeah, the Ryback and Panera have legit heat.
All right, last question. Tell me one guy in WWE who you'd like to see more of on television, and one guy who is not currently signed by the WWE who absolutely should be.
I would love to see more of... There's two people I'd love to see more of on WWE television, actually. Actually, there's loads. Anyways.
Pick the top.
Yeah. I would have to say Tyson Kidd. Like I said, I think he's phenomenal. But also a mention to Alex Riley, because I think, Alex Riley isn't the greatest technical wrestler or anything like that, but he always gets a reaction when he comes out. And he's so energetic in the ring. I don't know. I think he's really, really good and has a lot of potential. There's loads of guys who I think should be here, but one of the guys who I would really wish could have come here and now won't get the opportunity is my friend Nigel McGuinness. To me, he was every bit as good of a wrestler as I am, but had more personality and more of the look that like the WWE would like, and I think he would have really connected well with the WWE universe. And I just think it's kind of sad that he's not here, So, and then there's a million other guys who are great and awesome who I love to watch too. So,
well, listen, you represent those guys, and you're someone who all the purist wrestling fans, cheesy and cliched as it is, and I'm sure you know it and you can sense it in the audience when you're out there. But all the real smarky, big wrestling fans are all very excited to have you on top. You're one of the things that keeps it interesting. So, congratulations, and as time goes on, we'll have you back here again.
Oh, well, thank you very much.